Howdy, folks. Welcome to Viva the Cats. I'm your host, Justin Hiles, accompanied by my great friend, Steve Maurer, and we are here to sadly talk about the Bearcats every single week. It gets worse throughout the season. We cover all things Bearcats every single week, and we do try to review games live on Spaces. So make sure to check us out on Twitter if you're not already. If you're joining us today, we have just watched the end of probably the most, you could call it the most heartbreaking game of the season, but there's plenty of those that you could just draw from. We might have to do a draft at the end of the season, draft the worst games of the season. This one certainly hurt. The Bearcats lose on the road in Norman at Oklahoma, 74-71 in overtime. Complete heartbreak. I mean, it felt like it was there. It felt like this was finally the time that the Bearcats were going to get one. They had the momentum. They got off to a great start, kind of lulled, but they started to take, some strides in the second half. And unfortunately, one thing led to another. Couple bad calls, couple bad shots, a little bit of everything mixes into one whole pot of shit. So, Steve, hit me with this. There's a lot of things you could blame this game on, and surely there's plenty to choose from. What would you say are the top two things that lost this game for the Bearcats?
I would say one, don't foul a 3-point shooter 4 times. Like, dog, what is we doing there? And number two, Justin, you should still win a game when your opponent only makes 16 field goals. I get it. We're going to talk about it. There was a certain other aspect of the game, but dude, you still just can't foul a 3-point shooter, not once, but 4 times. Like, it's just, we've done that multiple times this year. We probably had a missed call against us in the UCF road game that was a foul against a 3-point shooter. I don't know why we're doing that this year. I get, like, we want to be aggressive and try and close out on threes, but and then when they make 12 out of 12 at the free throw line, like, that's 12 free points you just handed them right there. And I know, like, the free throw disparity, but, like, if that's 12 of them, they still shot about 12 more than you, but still, just a little bit upsetting on that end. Weirdly enough, I don't feel like as upset tonight because I had kind of already accepted that our season was over after the Oklahoma State game. Like, that was like the real nail in the coffin. But why don't we just lose to the other Oklahoma team too, just to really just put some more salt in the wound?
Sweep the state.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing too. I think it's just, their ability to not hold on to leads all season long came back once again for one final time, because I don't know if they'll have a lead on Saturday against West Virginia. Anything could happen in that game, but let me pull it up for you. It's just, like, disheartening really to see what this team has done in those situations where they've had a chance. 12-point lead tonight in the second half, 13-point lead this past Saturday, 14-point lead at UCF, and a 10-point lead at UCF. Those are all conference game second half leads that ended up being one possession games that we went 1-3 in. Oh, sorry, 2-2 in, if you think about it. But just, you flipped, if you go 4-0 in those games, Justin, like, it's completely different talk.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like, even in, like, Baylor game, you were up by 9. Oklahoma State game, like, you were leading by 7 at different points of that game. There's multiple games where they should have had the game, just blocked it away, and you could have afforded to, just have a weird night on the road like you did tonight. But you were right, Justin, all along, that they had so many opportunities earlier in the season to really just make this not a thing anymore. And they lost all those opportunities. And you know what? It's like, I think we all kind of knew the season was, like, already over after the Oklahoma State game, but it's really over now. And we'll see what tournament, if we decide to play in a tournament, what happens there. But just frustrating. And let me ask you, again, I saw a couple tweets about, like, West this, West that, refs this, refs that, but I just read off those leads to you, Justin, and we've had other leads in games, and I understand it's the Big 12. We probably don't have as much talent as these other teams, but what percentage of tonight's game do you place on the coach's shoulders, if at all?
Well, let's look at it this way. I think part of it comes down to a little bit of the strategy. I will say, I think part of your free throw disparity tonight, which is I think it's a massive aspect of this game. Like if you just bake it down to that and you want to look at that alone, it was 34 to 11. So they tripled your amount of attempts to the line. I will say we were not as aggressive in the paint as Oklahoma was. However, there were plenty of times that we also got mauled. So I think it goes both ways. There's a lot of, missed calls, and I think that was certainly an element. But I think when you're really talking about how much of this game goes back on Wes's shoulders, I don't think it's just a conversation about this game. I think it's a conversation about a lot of the games this season. There was a stat that came up a billion times on this broadcast. They just kept having to remind us that the Bearcats this season were 4-7, now 4-8 in games decided by 5 or less points. That is, don't ask a designer to do math. You're 4 out of 12. So you're 30%.
Yeah.
30% in games decided by 5 or less points. And I can also guarantee you that based on the way that, a lot of those games shook out, a lot of those were at home too. And so I think, when I look at that situation, as much as I would love to just be able to just throw this game completely on the refs, we knew that watching this game, we knew when it got all the way to the end that this was more of the same. We knew that there was nothing different about this game and the way that it started, went through the middle, got to the end, and all fell apart. There was nothing different about tonight's game than there were about so many of these other games. There was poor shooting. I will say the defense, I think, was actually pretty solid, but poor choices. Sometimes the lineup ends up getting a little fuzzy. I think towards the end when Wes pulled out Aziz, that was a huge killer because we lost a lot of momentum and we needed that big in there. Of course, he did end up fouling out anyways in overtime, but I think this is just one of those things that you get to the line, you have your chances that you can get. I will say I do like the aggressiveness. There was a lot of aggressiveness out of this team defensively. I think a little too much offensively. And I think that's probably my main gripe. And this is the thing that I would say where Wes could probably learn the most. I'm not going to say, hey, Wes Miller, coach of the Cincinnati Bearcats, proven decade plus long head coach of basketball teams, listen to a podcaster. You don't need to listen to that. I don't know what the fuck.
I think a lot of people are saying that. There's a lot of Bearcat podcasts out there now.
But I think that's true. There are more now. I think one of the biggest things that I really look at is this whole season kind of just boils down to it's an inability to slow the games down. Because I think we will start moving. We'll get on a tear and we'll start cracking the game open. Like you said, we'll get 7-point leads. We'll get 10, 15-point leads even. And once we do that, I feel like we do put a defensive lineup in there. However, we lose the ability to score. We fall completely flat. And sometimes those leads that are 7+ points turn into 0, turn into negative. Then we end up behind in literally 2 minutes. And I know that basketball is a game of runs. Everybody understands that. But so many of these games, we've watched these leads dry up faster than spit on a skillet. It just absolutely evaporated out of nowhere. And I think if we can just work on making sure that it's not even putting the pedal down and just starting to run it up on a team. I don't think you're going to do that in the Big 12. It's just about maintaining that gap. If you build that lead, hold that gap. Let them bring it closer if they have to on a run where they're doing really well, but don't let them take the lead again. Don't let them tie the game again. Keep some kind of lead throughout the game. There was one other thing I wanted to mention for this, which I think, again, put it on West, put it on refs, put it on whatever you want to put it on. Give credit to Oklahoma for that. I don't care. I think it was a Bearcat bunch. Shout out to you guys because they do some great coverage. So make sure to check those guys out. And if it wasn't you, well, I saw it somewhere else. So congrats to whoever that was. I'll find it later and I'll make sure to shout you out. But in this game, Oklahoma. I'm going to find it. Oklahoma led for like 4 total minutes, and the Bearcats led for like 38.
Yeah. And
It
the
was
Oklahoma's biggest lead of the game was the 3 points that they won the game by.
yeah. I mean, at Salzman __. Thank you. Shout out to you. Yeah, that's actually a good stat to pull. I mean, there's no excuse. You can't lose a game like that, and you really can't lose a game where you have as large of a lead as you do. And the ebbs and flows, like again, it's one of those situations where if they do well in the second half, they crumble. Or if they do well in the first half, they crumble in the second half. If they do poor in the first half, they're playing catch up to get back to good in the second half, but it's too little too late. So it's either too much too early or it's too little too late. But most of these games don't result in a win. And I don't know what other analysis we really need to give it other than that. I just think it's, like I said, it's heartbreaking because, you know, you've watched this team game in, game out. You're 17-13 now, so you're 30 games through the season. You're now 12th in the Big 12, and you're out of the tournament. Like, I think, you know, if there's a goal, if the goals that we had, we were like, as long as you hit 9 wins in conference, you're probably good. Well, you're at 6. You let the Oklahoma State game dry up. You threw away, you know, this game against Oklahoma. Unfortunately, you had some really good opportunities against a Houston or an Iowa State and just couldn't manage it, but it is what it is. You let a game get away from you against West Virginia. And I think the other big one too is, you know, that Texas game. I think that's one of the biggest ones I look back on that you wish you could have back. You just so wish you could have back. It's a one-shot game and you just can't have it. And I think unfortunately so many of these games end up biting you in the ass at the end of the season. And like you said, it's just not enough.
I do want to shout out Cincy Slangin. Shout out to you guys. They tweeted out, for what it's worth, Dan and Terry had no issue with the foul calls against UC. They were in the arena, up close and personal. They could probably talk to the players because there was like 15 OU fans in the building. It was like a Tulsa game in there. I think that was probably why UC didn't play well, is because it was like back to like AAC ball. Anyway, they were in the arena, up close and personal, and chalked it up to undisciplined play from the team. There were some frustrating calls, but I was much more frustrated by the Bearcats' self-inflicted errors. If Dan and Terry are not upset with the calls that are being made, and like Terry's, you know, we love Terry. He's a homer. He's a UC guy through and through. Like, he will let you know if there's something bad or good. And if he's letting you know that they were fine calls, then maybe I'm willing to back off a little bit on, you know, some of just how bad the free throws were. I do kind of think, Justin, that like, and we can talk about this with Wes another time, maybe in the off season, but like just the amount of discipline that permeates throughout this program sometimes just gets lost in second halves of games where they're up. And I looked up because I'm curious, because I keep talking about this damn ECU game from last year. We were up by 15 with 9 minutes left in the game and we lost. I agree that you probably need new players in, get old players out, but it's still just like, you know, and Wes even changed out like his assistant coaching staff this year. Got John Roberts, the head coach from John Hopkins, to be an assistant, and it's still the same shit, man. It's still like, you know, we're up by 10, like at about 11 to 9 minutes left in the game in about 5 of these games this year, and we, you know, we went 2-2, but we've had substantial leads in these games. And look, I understand Big 12 talent is much better than, like, you know, obviously AAC talent, and maybe we just weren't ready for this jump this year. It kind of shows. Just like I tweeted out, there was a screen cap of like 3 guys on the bench just like absolutely like drained. Like,
yeah, they looked exhausted.
Like, this season has probably taken a toll out of those guys, and hasn't helped that, you know, different guys have been in and out of the lineup all season. They've probably not been able to get like a decent rhythm going, but it's just still, to me, like Wes is still like figuring out the kinks of coaching. And if he was just a high level assistant that was still in his like 3rd year of coaching, then yeah, sure, I'm fine with that. Like, you can make mistakes on the job. You've proven that you can recruit. This is a man in his 13th season of head coaching and is still making mistakes that are costing UC games. And it's just like you're not going to fire him at any point. Buyout is 9.9 million before 2026. So we're going to, and it's not obscene to think that next year, like I was talking to our buddy Donnie after the game, next year could be a lot better because we have guys like the Tylers and Ravon coming off his red shirt and mostly return everyone other than I believe Odie. Like there's a pretty good core coming back for next year, and it's just a learning experience for those guys. Those guys, I just want the coach to have that learning experience too, and so that we're not stuck in those situations. Because if we have a coach that is based solely on his Joes being better than the other team's Joes, then I don't want to say all of those close losses are down to coaching, because obviously like the Big 12 has great players, a couple of great players made a couple great shots in games against us, or it's a really tough league, but I just don't know how many close games you can continue to lose and still just feel confident in the job that he's doing.
Yeah, no, and that's I think you make a very, very fair analysis on that because like you said, there's only so many times that you can lose in the same fashion. There's only so many times that these games get so close where you're like, okay, well, eventually your talent is not always going to be the problem. Sometimes it's going to come down to making the right calls, making the right timeouts, calling these things earlier to stop bleeding when those things happen. And that clearly has happened so many times throughout these games. We've talked about that and how these leads just evaporate out of nowhere. I think one thing that certainly didn't help tonight, and we can start to tail off of the game today and check back to the Kansas State one because that was at least somewhat of fun. It's quickly forgotten, unfortunately, but no Vic tonight I think was a huge thing. You still got no CJ, and I think one of the things that Wes is clearly going to catch a lot of flack from a lot of people, and for good reason for this season. Like there's good reason. I'm not going to argue with those people because everyone had their doubts. And I think some of those doubts were exploited. And I think some of these issues that Wes has had have clearly come to fruition and are eventually, like we said, going to start biting you in the ass at the end of the season. But one of the biggest things I really do think comes down to just how much this roster has flipped and ping ponged around, and you have so many different health issues. And, I think a lot of it comes down to that. And then on top of that, you have to rely on some of your younger core for, some of
Sorry.
And no, you're good. And I
didn't like that very much.
I think it's just when it comes down to how these lineups shake out. Like I said, you're rotating so many guys in and out throughout the entire season. I think every coach inevitably deals with that at some point. I think aside from John Newman being out for the majority of last year, we had a pretty good run of luck with our guys staying healthy, but we just couldn't pull it all together. And that's the thing I want people to think about too, which I think is where I give Wes a little bit more slack. Is you look at last year, this team was pretty much good to go. You're missing a core piece, but pretty much good to go. And they were fifth in the AAC, fourth in the AAC at the end of the season. They lost a handful of games they never should have had any business losing. You look at this season, as many games as they have lost, they have done a fantastic job of getting up to level of competition. And I think that's just where the frustrating point is because you can clearly tell it's there. All these games are there to take, but I think that's where you're still going to run into some of these walls is this team is still getting over that hurdle and they're still learning this conference. And that's not a thing that I think switches as much as people want it to in the first year. And I'll make my one last point on Houston. Everybody knows Houston has been a very solid team and they were ready for this jump a long time ago. Like they finally got the ball rolling and they were ready for this jump. We were on the downturn of so many different things going wrong. And of course, we're trying to figure things out. But, we were not in the position in the AAC to make the jump to the Big 12 and expect anything to be good. The fact that we've had so many of these games be so tight, I think is really I'm not going to say rewarding. I think it's one of those things that's unexpected. I don't think that anybody expected us to compete at the level that we have.
I mean, I didn't. Like
Yeah, but
we've
it comes
acquitted ourselves admirably.
yeah, but it comes down to finishing. And I think that's the thing is that's the biggest difference between a conference like this and the conference that you're in is
And
can you
the
finish games?
you said finishing, Justin, real quick. This is like this is his third season at Cincinnati, and this is likely his third season that it's just going to come down to careening crash at the end of the season. Um,
That's true.
I mean, like, you know, I think there's just got to be something like, you know, maybe the guys need to get in the Monster Factory more. Maybe we play a couple tougher games earlier in the season, not front load our non-conference with so many cupcakes, and just that we're able to weather the storm. And it's also still just probably our roster just getting up to Big 12 speed, but
Yeah.
it's I just see the signs and the trends, and it's concerning me that, and like, you know, like obviously there's one game on and offs, and there's like certain things about different games that stand out, but the trends are there that I'll have to look at his month by month splits, but they can't be very good for February and March regular season games. Like that's at UC. So off of that, why don't we talk about a game that he won that was in March at UC? How about that?
That works for me. Kansas State. I mean, yeah, it's you look at this game and it's one of those ones where I think it works out in your favor. It works out in your favor, but it's still a little bit more of the same. It's you have the same conversation of you build a lead, you kind of control the game for a good portion of it, and then it slowly gets chipped away at until eventually you're deadlocked in a one possession game for the final 3 or 4 minutes. And this one you came out on top. And I think this one we felt I don't even know if anybody felt good about it. I think it was just kind of like we're not dead yet. Like, I don't think anybody was like overwhelmingly, excited about this game. I think it was one that definitely, like I said, felt like there was some things you could build off of, and maybe there was some momentum that you could gain from that game. Inevitably, that did not end up happening. But I think these games honestly looked pretty similar, especially just like I said, with how they started and how they finished. But eventually, those one possession games roll your way, and eventually, when you do that enough, the other ones don't. So, Steve, do you have any more in-depth analysis on that one?
Not incredibly in depth into this game, but I'm just wondering out loud, and I tweeted it tonight, kind of just as a joke, but I'm just imagining what a full season of CMOS Lukosius would have looked like if damn Jefferson Avenue did not happen to him this year. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the dude's kind of been clutch in a couple of games for us late in this season, and he won. He hit that game winner against Texas Tech, hit another game winner against K State. He's been pretty money in some of these conference games, and I'm just wondering about that Xavier game. I wonder about, like, my mind just like spins and spins and spins. If just that unfortunate accident didn't happen. And I told Kenny Freeze that we wouldn't joke about a certain fan base being the culprit, to be that car on Jefferson Avenue. So I won't do that. But Justin, like, what if we had a full season of CMOS? And here's another feather in the cap for next year. We'll have a full season, and we're going to wrap him in bubble wrap. And we're going to build a bridge over Jefferson Avenue so he doesn't have to go over it. So, but seriously though, like, what do you think this season would have looked any different with a full year of CMOS?
Well, see, I think this is a little bit greater of a conversation than just CMOS. I definitely agree that CMOS would have made a little bit more of an impact had he been, completely there. But this is where I come back to where I feel like, as much as people don't want to, you got to give Wes a little bit of leeway here. This guy had 2 guys out on transfer waivers that did not get accepted until December and then January. So you got these guys not really playing up until just about Big 12 game time. You've got two very core guys, two of your core bigs who have to get up to game speed, and also one coming from Temple and then the other coming from Utah Valley State. So they got to get geared up. That's what those cupcake games are for. Get you ready. You don't have that. CMOS gets hit by a car. Doink. I mean, you could not imagine something like just so out of left field happening to your season, but you have, a guy who unfortunately gets stuck in the middle of that situation. And then you also have CJ Frederick out for the grand majority of this season, who you're relying to be your best 3-point shooter. CMOS is definitely there with him, but that's what I imagine too, is you look at a guy like CMOS and his ability to shoot. CJ is right there with him, but he just hasn't been able to get out on the court and he hasn't been able to stay healthy. And then you have Vic, and Vic was like lightning in a bottle and then completely fell off the face of the earth. And then he's injured again. So it's like, that's what I'm saying, where I think people need to give West just a little bit more leeway and a little bit more time, because there's a lot of just like freak accident kind of shit. I will say, I think the CJ thing, like, he's had a track record of just not being able to stay healthy. It was a gamble. And unfortunately, I don't think that gamble necessarily worked out for just getting a guy on the court and having some quality minutes. But you're talking about 5-6 guys in your rotation, core pieces of your rotation, and that just aren't able to be there all the time and that are in and out throughout different points of the season. I think that's just, it's very, very hard to build something consistent and to roll with that. And like I said, I'm going to give the excuse. A lot of people don't want to do that, and that's fair. Have your own opinion, because a lot of teams suffer with this. I mean, even look at Houston. Houston's down to now like an 8-man roster, but that 8-man roster is pretty damn good. So
yeah. Shout out to JoJo Tugler, by the way. I feel bad for him.
I think that's just where I come down to, is it's not just about one player even. It's about so many of these other guys just getting pushed in and pushed out of this rotation for whatever other reason. And I think it's just hard, like I said, to build that consistency. And then even so, you're trying to get, your freshman minutes, and then you got guys that get hot. And then, some of your seniors aren't always playing consistent. So I think there's been a real lack of consistency, and I don't necessarily think that all of that gets put on a coach. I think some of that gets put on a player, but then all these other things that are just off-court issues that are just health related or waiver related or whatever it might be. There's just so many just weird things about this season. And so I think it makes it really hard to just gauge that, like, this was not the perfect ready to go season. And then you package that whole shit bag together. That sounds like I'm calling somebody a shit bag. You package that whole bag of shit, all of the stuff that happened and went wrong and could possibly go wrong for you.
Yeah.
And then you look at how close they were so many times, and you look at the fact that not only that, it was also in the Big 12. I think it's just, there's, like I said, it's you're asking so many things to work out for you. And then you've also got this massive jump in talent and skill and game to game. And like you said before, the exhaustion and just the wear on these players that they're not used to. It's just a perfect storm to have a lot of things go wrong. And that's what happened this season. A lot of things went wrong.
Yep, for sure. But I was happy for the guys to like be able to have that one final moment at Fifth Third. Obviously, they'll have this game upcoming on Saturday, but pretty cool moment. You don't, like, for whatever reason in college basketball, you don't get a lot of like Saturday night games. So like, I know it obviously doesn't matter just because indoor sport, dummy, but I do kind of like that atmosphere of like a rowdy Fifth Third on a Saturday night. Like, do you remember that like 2019 year where we had like those two like 8 p.m. games against like UConn and UCF, and like student section was just like rowdy. Like
they had time to go to the bars first.
Yeah. So I kind of like when we have that environment at UC, and I kind of wish there was more ability for us to have those Saturday night games. But I'm happy for the guys because they definitely went through hell and back in February, and they unfortunately almost let this one slip away, but they were able to pull it out. And also shout out to the fans, like still a full house. And I know we made that joke at Kansas State's expense about how like light the crowd was for that West Virginia game at home, and This is them coming off of an Elite Eight year, and we haven't had any success in the tournament in a while, and you still like are seeing fans fill up the building, and it should be full again on Saturday. So just I think even this year when like there's been a lot of ups and downs and a lot of trials and a lot of reason for people to be upset, I am still happy to see that the fan base is still invested, and they should be. And I want these two guys that are going to get honored on Saturday for Senior Day to feel the love from this fan base.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest things, like you mentioned at the end of the season. It's nice to at least say that most people did not give up when it got like sticky and it got hairy through the end of the season. Because it definitely was tough. I mean, we've seen this before, and you said this before, and I actually looked this up um, while you were talking there for a second. The Bearcats' finish under Wes Miller in the final 12 games. I just pulled 12 for Big 12. Why not? The final 12 games of the 21, 22, and 23 seasons, which includes this season, not finished yet. Close enough. 2021 finished 3-9 through the last 12 in the American. 2022 finished 7-5 through the final 12. And then this year, we are either going to finish 3-9 or 4-8 through the final 12. And, for both sides, I think for all three of those, they were a little bit easier parts of your schedule, unfortunately. But, unfortunately, we've seen Senior Day collapses. I'm hoping that this is not one of them. I think Steve knows exactly which one I'm talking about. But this game, I think, against West Virginia, you have a really good opportunity to just kind of get one last hurrah, get one more good game for these guys, and just send them out the right way in fifth, third. No matter what you do, I think you just have to win this game. Like I know that this season has not gone the way that people expected it to and hoped. And I know for the players and the coaches and everybody, it's just kind of been a little bit on the downside of what they wanted. But this game, I feel like, even though you just lost to, Oklahoma, which is a tough team, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. You have to consider this still a must win. You have to consider this game like send your guys off the right way. Make sure that fifth, third has the right environment, even though it hasn't been great. Give them something to cheer for, give them something to cheer for from their players and coaches' perspective, and for fans, show up and be there and just send them off. Like this has been a very, very difficult and tough season. And I really hope that it ends off on a lighter note. I know the Big 12 tournament, obviously, put your outside bets on the Bearcats if you want to. Throw a $5 bill on there. You might end up making like 100 off that, buddy. But even though you're like 1 in 14 odds, technically, I think you gotta take care of business in this game. You feel like you can't say it, but you still should.
Yeah,
you still should. They are 9-20 this year, 4-12 in conference.
and you have that bad taste in your mouth after that game in Morgantown. So
Right. Get home and get right.
Question for you. Obviously, John Newman and Odio Guamam, a lot of love and flowers to them, man. Like they came with Wes like in a rough time for UC basketball and really steadied the ship. We had some fun times with them for sure. I mean, we got to talk to John ourselves, and that was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed that interview. And I think, it's the guy, I think for me, it's the guys that some of the guys I remember the most are the guys that were really good for our team during the really shitty years, if that makes sense. Like Deontay Vaughn and Cedric McCowan, dude, like I still remember those guys. Like I still remember watching them play, even when Cincinnati was like 2-14 in their first year in the Big East, like it's those guys. Like I remember obviously, and then I was like, for like the football example, I was like, I was watching the team, I was with the team, but I'll still like, DM Hayden Moore every now and then, like just back and forth, like, hey man, like I hope everything's good. Like I think it's these kind of moments when, and we didn't have a losing season or anything like that when these guys were here, but it's guys like that who are helping to build the program back up to where everybody wants it to be, that I think you can have a lot of respect and love for.
Yeah.
and I want to give you your chance to give them your flowers, but I'm just wondering, do you think CJ Frederick will join them on Saturday, or do you think because he still has another year available, but just I'm just kind of wondering out loud if he will take this opportunity.
Yeah, I think the CJ thing's a tough position because, as fans, we have no idea where his head's at. I think as somebody who has watched a lot of players, suffer through injuries and just not really be able to play, you would think that, there's definitely an avenue where maybe he just kind of calls it quits while he still has some good legs under him. Because I think that that's, a little bit more of the smart move. You can't, sometimes these injuries will start to catch up to you. And when you're in your 20s, you don't want to feel like you're in your 50s. And I think some of these guys unfortunately do. So I hope that CJ, regardless of whatever happens, makes the best decision for himself. Personally, I don't think that he will end up joining them. I think I would imagine, knowing the type of players that we bring to this program, I would imagine he's probably going to try to run it back and just see if he can give it one last good go. And certainly I hope that he would, but for the sake of his health too, I just hope that, like I said, he makes the best decision for whatever ends up happening for him, whatever he wants to do. Cause I think that ultimately is going to decide a lot of the, trajectory of your future. If he wants to play overseas, if he wants to keep playing basketball after college, he'll probably have to try to give it one more good season, but don't run your body into the ground. I think that's one of the biggest things because you see that happen to a lot of players and you see how it ages on them pretty fast. So hopefully he can stay healthy regardless of what his choice is. But as far as for John and for Odie, like you said, I mean, I think that there are some really pivotal guys through this stretch, especially for Wes. I mean, I think Odie is, especially he's been kind of in a tough ask situation because, he was brought in, made a pretty good impact off the jump and looked like he might start to put himself into a little bit of a bigger role and then ended up being a role player. But he accepted that clearly with grace, and you can see his attitude on the court. When he's on the bench, when he's on the court, he's playing hard every minute. And, you love to see that effort out of him. And that's all you can ask out of a Bearcat. And then, of course, for John Newman, I mean, can't give enough praise. I mean, I think he's one of those ones that we will always remember because his effort on the court was unquestionable and undoubtable. And I think it really rubbed off on a lot of the other guys around him, and his energy and his presence off court too. Was very light, but he always had a serious mentality. And I think that that's one of those things that's so good to have. And you have the right guy in there. And that's again where, and I don't want to make this a full conversation about Wes, but he's bringing in the right guys culturally. You're not hearing about shit off the court. You're hearing about these guys on the court, and off the court, you're hearing nothing but praise. And I think that just goes to show, like, building the culture, building the right people in this arena, building the right, feel that you want to have going forward, making sure that the Cincinnati brand is protected that way. I give that nothing but praise. But, for John, always gave that hustle. And I really hope that he can play at the next level somewhere, because I want to keep watching him do that. And hey, John, there's this little thing called the TBT. We would love to watch you play in that. We would love to watch you play again in Fifth Third Arena, because the Bearcats are hosting the TBT. A lot of fun. That's what happens when you win the crosstown shootout in the TBT. Yeah. So hopefully he'll find his way back for that. I can't get my camera to focus. I don't know what's going on here. Hopefully he'll find his way back for that. But senior day, put it all together, make it work, find a dub, beat West Virginia. Split the season, unfortunately. I thought that was going to be a sweep. I really did, but find a dub.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you don't do what you did in your other quad 3 games in conference, I think you have a chance to really do something fun. And you're going to break out the red jerseys on Saturday, most likely, since it's senior day. So let's have the same thing that we had last year for DDJ. Let's do it all over again. for Odie and Vic on Saturday. Sorry, not Vic. I would have been breaking news there. Odie and John Newman on Saturday.
Breaking news from Viva La Cats pod. It's still breaking news. It's about Charlie Hustle, baby. This is what we're finally. The moment is here. We have been waiting for this for months and months and months. I don't know how to say it better other than they're finally dropping the merch. It's happened. Marty Ludwig, whoever we got to thank in the licensing department, thank you for finally getting this through. They've already got some stuff on the way. And in fact, it's dropping today. If you're listening to this episode, it's dropping. So keep your eyeballs out. Without further ado, I guess we just get to drop this thing. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. They got the Big 12. They got every single name, including the Bearcats. And they got this hot little piece right there. There. Check it out. Check it out. Bring da ruckus. I love this shirt. This is such a nice product just to get everything started. We've been waiting for something to come through. And I think that this is a very, very cool way to do it. Here you can see like just a lot of good detail. It's got that kind of like cat scratchy look. It almost in a way kind of reminds me of the, you remember the Hawaiian Paradise Jam tournament shirts? It kind of reminds me of that a little bit too. It's got a cool little vibe to it, but of course the ruckus is a premier part of the Bearcats. And so I think it's awesome that they have a shirt to just kind of bring that all together at the start of Charlie Hustle's run of Bearcats gear. This is the first, absolutely not the last. And I'm sure there's more on the way. So we'll be happy to receive it all. But Steve and I are going to be in this thing ASAP.
As a great group and financial advisory group once said, if you want beef, then bring the ruckus. Cincinnati is nothing to F with, baby. And you can get that shirt at charliehustle.com. Promo code 101215. Bearcat fans, now's the time. Use that for your first order from Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. Go get that shirt right now. Hey, maybe this will be the shirt that finally brings us the luck. Maybe Charlie Hustle's just like, we're waiting for the right time to drop it for y'all. We're going to have them at the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. They're going to be eating some Cincinnati cheese conies, and they're going to be wearing their Bring Direcka shirts. And who knows, everybody, maybe these shirts have the juice because Charlie Hustle is vintage made fresh. And as one of my favorite groups, financial advisory boards would say, bring the ruckus. We're here, baby. We're on the site. Let's go. Let's go.
Bring the ruckus. It's about time. It's about time we got that Charlie Hustle merch. So excited for this. Like we said, there will be more coming at some point. We don't know exactly when all that logistically is going to pan out, but nice to just be in there officially. And, good on the licensing department, good on the Bearcats for finally getting something in there. I'm sure there's going to be some awesome product following this too. So keep your eyes out. But again, use that promo code 101215, get 15% off this bad boy. Put it on there and get to a Bearcats game. Put it on there and get to the Big 12 tournament. Show out. Wear that Charlie Hustle merch. So thanks again to those guys. And thank you for letting us be able to show this thing off. First eyeballs on it for the podcast. So super excited about that. But we move on. So it's spring, baby. Spring's officially in season. The tree in my backyard has bloomed. We got flowers all over it. All the trees around Nashville look beautiful right now. Spring's in the air, 70 degrees. It's perfect. Little drizzle here and there. What else is a nice part of spring, Steve?
I went to a spring training game on Saturday, and Justin, Monday marked the start of spring ball for the Bearcats. Now, Cincinnati is starting their second year of spring ball under head coach Scott Satterfield. Got to see a couple of the new guys play. Shout out to Jonah Edelman for tweeting out the clips, but Braden Sorsby making a couple good throws. I like that. Samaj Jones throwing a tight spiral. I like that too. Didn't see much else from practice, but you know what? If that's the two clips we're going to see, I don't mind. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this is, it's an exciting time because I think Keegan Nixon had put out a article, or somebody did. I don't remember exactly who it was. Sorry, I really need to keep track of these things so I can actually shout out the right people. But I think we're over 30 new players that are going to be on the roster this season after the turnover that we had last year, which definitely is going to be probably up there as far as Division I football goes. But I'm really curious to see how everything shakes out, because I think it's going to be it's going to be a crunch time season for not only Satterfield, but I think for the Bearcats. You're not going to have Texas and Oklahoma in the conference anymore. You're going to bring in Utah, who's done a good job in the Pac-12. You're going to bring, Utah. They haven't been very nice to everybody, so we're not going to be nice to them.
I don't like
Arizona, which we will be nice to. We'll make it out for that game. Arizona State and Colorado, of course. You're going to have a lot of new teams in here, and you're going to have to make your mark early. And I think that once you get now up to 16 teams, there's going to be a lot of teams meddling, and there's going to be a lot of teams in the bottom half. And I think for Cincinnati, your goal is just to not finish there. And so a lot of that starts early, and a lot of that starts with spring ball, making sure that your guys are ready to go over the summer. I don't know. Early vibes. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful at least.
Bearcats will play. We'll have 2 more practices this week. Spring break is next week. Remember those days, Justin? It's a full week off from commitments. That sounds nice for those of us who have to work full weeks now.
Oh yeah.
And then they'll go back to a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule before the spring game on April 13th at Nippert. This is just just asking, just kind of asking out loud to our favorite athletic department, who we talk about all the time. There's a way we could get that spring game on ESPN Plus. I know us out of towners would greatly appreciate that.
Yes.
We know from watching the lacrosse games that you've got cameras already in the building. So I think that that's just the next step up, because obviously there's the Big Ten and SEC programs all have these games just on the SEC network or Big Ten network or whatever. And I think that's something that UC has always kind of lacked a little bit, is not just having that ability for just Big 12 Joe Schmo be like, hey, I want to watch the Cincinnati spring game, see what's going on with them this year, and I don't have any plans right now for April 13th. So give me something to do. Let me watch that game.
Give us something to do.
Maybe we'll tweet this clip at them and be like, hey, maybe, if we throw a couple more Cincy Reigns dollars in the mix, we can figure something out. But
yeah, I'll drink a couple more Cincy Lights. That's no big deal.
Yeah. I mean, and twist my arm.
Twist my arm some more.
I would love to see that though. Because I've liked, Justin, what they've been doing with just kind of the off season little push that they've had, and trying to tell the people how they changed just on their social media pages. I do wish that they would have responded to the tweet I sent from our account about how many more episodes are we getting, when are these dropping, and no response yet. So I'll give some grace there, but I've liked what I've seen so far, at least. And guys have been vulnerable in these interviews. I'd like to just continue seeing how the team progresses. Now we'll see what that leads into. But Justin, I did also have this on the mind, just because I wanted to bring up Bill Connolly recently released his off-season SP Plus projections for 2024, and UC's at a 73, not great, but they've got at least 5 of the 6 teams that are on their schedule all around them within the 50 to 80 range, which it's you get a couple of those teams at home. I feel like you can do something with that, and I'd have to look at what their off-season ranking was last year. So maybe they won't
probably
be
higher.
I would guess so, but I do think that if they do want to bowl by Boulder, they have to take care of some of those opportunities, and that made me feel a little bit better to understand that a lot of the teams that are on your schedule are close by to you. And I think we've talked about the schedule already, but that hard month is November. November is a tough month for you, and if you can like win some of your toss ups, you are going to do yourself a lot of good just for like the general goodwill around this program and for, like not everybody like hating you this year. If you can just really like take care of business and get what you need to get done early in the season. And we've talked about it. So again, no need to rehash, but like I think there's a lot of opportunity, at least. I'm in the business world,
Yeah.
Justin, and we don't like to say like, oh, that's a bad thing. We like to say it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
So that there's a lot of opportunities for UC to really say that was just a 1 year thing. We're back. We're going to be able to rev it up again, and we're not just going to be like a doormat in the new Big 12. I saw some rando say that we have the worst chance to have the most wins over the next 5 years in the new Big 12. I was like, all right, bet someone put this up in the locker room. Like we've come a long way where teams are where like outlets are actually talking about us in the off season. Because like back in the AAC days, like you'd have
True.
like one just rando like here and there on Twitter, but now it's like a dude who made a 15-minute video and posted it on YouTube and saying
That's a
like
good point.
you're gonna finish last. And like I can tell you from experience, Justin, like our strength coaches would just make up fake quotes and plaster them on the locker room walls just to like get the guys upset the week
Right.
before the game, and this is kind of like just what these programs do, like I think the guy for Georgia went viral after the TCU national championship game for saying that somebody predicted them to go 7-5 this year. I kind of knew what that was. That was probably just some like strength intern who like wrote that up and put it in the locker room, and the Georgia players saw it and were like, what the hell? They said that, because
And it sounded exactly like that too.
yeah, what the hell? Like
Georgia,
because
baby.
the
No,
younger
no.
generation gets duped just as much as the older generation now in our current media state. But anyway, um, I do like it. Obviously, like you can make up all the fake stories you want to give these guys some motivation, but when there's real people saying real things about you on the internet, that's a big motivation, man. Like
Yeah.
we're all human, and you can either take it and be like, oh, nobody knows what they're talking about, or use it as that fuel. And if I know athletes and I know college athletes, like they're using that as fuel. So I really want to see like how these 15 practices go for UC, what some of the reporters and beat writers think about what happened during them, and really try to just build up the excitement and try to get something better than what we had last year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really good point. And, you know, nothing is more of a motivator. Nothing is more of a
Motivator.
motivator. Nothing's more of a motivator than somebody telling you that you can't do something. And I think somebody else said those specific words this week. Unfortunately, those were the words of Jason Kelsey as he made his official retirement from the NFL after a very, very successful career. I think that this is one of the ones that you knew was coming. If anything happened, you knew it was going to be like a last hurrah, just one last go around. Hopefully, he'll just get the victory farewell tour, Vince Carter style or Kobe style when he did it in his final season. But I think that this is just one of those situations that you're just going to have to say your graces and part with it. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see him in an NFL uniform again, but we will see plenty of him, I'm sure. Clearly, he's done a great job with New Heights with him and Travis, and I think that's been a very successful endeavor for him. He's been in tons of commercials. I think he could have a very successful acting career if he wanted to go down that path. Commentating, he clearly knows the game so well, and he's got a great voice for it. And I think that, his ability to cover the game would be awesome to just have that from a fan perspective. But overall, the career of Jason Kelsey is definitely one that will go down as one of the best centers ever in the NFL. And you could quite argue that he was the best center too. And so, to be able to say that he was a Bearcat, I think is just super cool. And I think that that's a really good mark for the program as far as future goes. And just being able to, say you had a player like that, especially of recent memory. And like I said, it's unfortunate that he's not going to be playing in the NFL anymore, but He's got 3 kids. He's got a wife. He's got a lot of life. Got to go out and live it. And it's not always going to be on the football field. So I'm excited to see what he does after, his retirement. I think even from listening to his final press conference, which I was at work. I was trying to listen to this and I had my headphones in. I'm sitting here and then he starts talking about Travis and then he starts talking about his wife and his kids and everything he said. I think it was 45 minutes long. I think he thanked literally everybody he possibly could. Like he went into a full deal. But every time he brought up one extra thing, he was breaking through the entire thing, just trying not to just start sobbing. And I had to keep taking my headphones out and I had to look away, blink it off. I'm all right, control yourself. He's a sensitive man and I am a sensitive man. And it's very easy to get me to break my emotions as it would be for any Bearcats fan who's struggled through this entire 2023 to 2024 so far. So, Steve, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the Eagles, I watched a lot of the clips and watched a lot of the press conference, and I did all right during the press conference, but then the Eagles put out this great 6.5-minute video on, a couple highlights, obviously, but just how much work he did in the community, how much he loves his girls and stuff. And I gotta tell you, man, I was just I don't know why. It was just
fighting for your life, man. Helping out.
Yeah, and then I had so I actually had my niece here this weekend who's 6 months old too, and seeing Travis with his little baby and the little ones, and then getting to hold my niece and stuff. I was just whoa. It was all coming to me, but
tears are for grown men too.
Yeah. And something that didn't come out until a day later when his trainer posted on one of the athletic trainers for the Eagles posted it on Instagram. He cut just the tiniest amount of flack for wearing a cutoff t-shirt to his retirement press conference. But apparently there was he got dressed like he was about to put on his pads and such because one of the athletic trainers who taped him up for however many years before games couldn't be at his final professional game because he was getting treated for cancer. So Jason let him tape up his ankles one more time that he could have the trainer tape up his ankles that one last time. Just a human thing, but such a cool thing, just to still recognize even those small dudes, not small, but what I mean, Justin. And how it is. We've worked in those type of positions before. We rode the bus with the trainers and the mascots and the equipment people. It's very easy for players to just not acknowledge you when you're in that position. And it's different for the training staff, I understand, just because they see the players a lot more and just work with them a lot more. But it's also very easy for an athlete like that to just just not really care. But that's just who Jason is. He gave that signed jersey to that McDonald's drive-through worker. He gave he was able to let that guy tape his ankles one more time. You're right. He thanked everybody he could. Just a heart of gold. And you're right. He's a Bearcat. So I'm so excited for him to just be able to enjoy an off season, not have to worry about it. And also he's at 282 right now. He was already considered a sexy man at 282. I want to see him when he drops down to 240, kind of got a little six pack working. Man, he might break out the Speedo this summer. He's going to be an icon. So I'm just excited for him. I'm looking forward to seeing just a shirtless picture of him this summer. And
what is Steve most looking forward to in Jason Kelsey's retirement?
Yes, exactly. Well, and then also if the Chiefs, as much as it would make me even more numb to them if they keep continuing to go on playoff runs, if we get Travis just being an absolute goon and just drinking all the beers and wearing cases on his head and drunkenly saying hello to celebrities, I'm all for it. So just give me more Jason consuming alcohol. We've seen a lot of videos of Travis at Woody's chugging, but we haven't seen as many of Jason. But now, hey, Letterman's weekend rolls around, like I said, on that spring game. So maybe he'll come around April 12th, you see him at Woody's just like slamming them back, baby.
Stone Cold style.
Yes,
That's what we look for.
But
I wanted to make that video at some point, but we've had nothing really to make that for this season. So Bearcats, that's your goal for this 2024 to 2025 season. Football, basketball, all of it. Give us a reason to smash two Cincy Lights together and pour it all over ourselves in victory. That's our goal for whatever it is. I don't care. Just give me a reason.
Here's to you though, Jason. I have a beer with me. Here's to you. Congratulations on retirement. 13 years in the league. Like, how many dudes can say that, especially playing center for the same team?
Oh, yeah.
13 straight years. Like, good for you, man. And like, I'm just happy we get more podcasts.
Yeah. I mean, it's all good information there. Steve, there is a nice hearty Chipotle burrito waiting for you right now. It is the Bearcats Sports Wrap-Up. Give us that rundown in 2 minutes or less. It's going to be the fastest one you've ever done. Don't slip up. Not one word. No tripping over your words. Fly through it like your life depends on it. Center, focus. Bring all of the energy of the Bearcats W's, and there's some else too, into one core, one body, and disperse the victories.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's get to it then. Bearcat Sports Wrap Up brought to you by the 1012 Network. Go check them out. Listen to some of our friends on the other podcasts on the network. Really just become a Big 12 fan overall and not just a Bearcats fan. Speaking of the Big 12, women's basketball, Cincinnati received an 11 seed, and they will face UCF Thursday night in their first Big 12 tournament game. UCF is the 14 seed, so if you want to watch maybe the Bearcats play a competitive game, they already won twice against this UCF team this season. Maybe they'll go for the three-peat and really sweep the Knights. So go ahead and watch them this Thursday night in the Big 12 tournament, first Big 12 tournament game for the women's basketball team.
Shout out to Jillian Hayes, who got an honorable mention for all Big 12 women's basketball.
That was awesome. Shout out to Jillian. Keep doing your thing. Track, Julia Laraquente Huebner will represent Cincinnati in the pentathlon at the NCAA Indoor Track and Field Championships in Boston this weekend. So shout out to you. Go do that pentathlon. Bring home a gold for us. Men's golf, Ryan Ford finished second overall for Cincinnati at the Colleton River Collegiate this weekend. And the Bearcats will stay south for the Johnny-O in Sea Island, Georgia this upcoming weekend. So good luck, golfers. Baseball, the Cats have won 4 of their last 5. They beat Oakland last week. They took 3 out of 4 from Northern Illinois, and they will host Akron this upcoming week, actually on Wednesday, before they visit Manhattan, Kansas this weekend to start conference play. Good luck to those baseball Bearcats. Great way to rebound from a couple of tough outings, and hopefully you'll be able to continue building that up. K-State's a good team, but I have confidence in our Bearcats. Lacrosse. The Bearcats beat Youngstown State this past Friday, they beat Kent State at home on Sunday, and they demolished both teams. I think they won by more than 10 each. I think the Youngstown State game they won by 21. Pretty good, I'd say, 25-4. They're pretty darn good. They will play Louisville at home this Wednesday, tomorrow, before visiting crosstown rivals Norwood Tech on Sunday. So definitely make sure to watch them play Louisville tomorrow. I watched them play Louisville last year, won on a walk-off overtime goal. So hopefully they can do the same thing at home.
5-2 so far in the season, by the way.
Pretty dang good. Cam Callahan, shout out. Keep doing your thing. Tennis. The tennis team dropped 2 matches to TCU and Baylor this weekend at home. Shout out to the Crack Racket stream. That was pretty cool to see that with the partnership with the Big 12 and being able to see multiple streams of tennis going on. So tennis, another great sport to watch, especially if it's just a Friday and you're trying to just not do as much work. Watch some tennis. They will visit Oklahoma and Texas this upcoming weekend on Friday and Sunday. And to close out, swimming and diving, the women. Oh, Justin.
So close.
You told me, and I was
So
at the last
close.
point. But the men and women both finished fourth in the Big 12 championships this past weekend in Morgantown, West Virginia. And that is your Bearcat sports wrap up. We've got a couple other sports that are playing, fall sports that are playing spring games right now. Soccer just played against Dayton last weekend. Volleyball will be playing against Kentucky this upcoming weekend. So if you're out and about around campus, go ahead and watch some Bearcat sports. Get in there. This is a great time of year to be able to go watch Bearcat sports, especially if you're like me and you like watching sports up live and close. Like, these are awesome sports to go to, and definitely go check out that lacrosse team, man. Like, the lacrosse is so much fun, and we got a stud in Cam Callahan. Like, she is so good.
Let me just real fast. We start off 0-2 in lacrosse. These are the scores of our last 5 games. I'm just going to throw this out here real fast. Run it down. 15 zip, 17-4, 17-4, 25-4, 16-4. They have allowed a grand total of 16 points through 5 games and have scored, quick maths, over 100.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
It's pretty good.
Like, that's wild. Like, they're solid. Like, they found a rhythm, and those ladies are they're beating them up. So very, very good job. I'm excited to see how they continue to perform.
Yep, got some good competition coming up this week, but I'm ready to see them beat those Cardinals and that Norwood State.
Norwood State. You know what all of those teams do a very good job of?
What's that?
Steve? They bring the ruckus.
They bring the ruckus.
They
That's
bring
right,
the
baby.
ruckus. That's right, baby. One more time, let's just give some flowers to this awesome, awesome gear from Charlie Hustle. We're going to send it off with this one. Make sure, as you Bearcats fans always do, get out there, bring the ruckus for senior day, support our Bearcats, support John Newman, Odie, and maybe CJ as well, depending on how things go. Support these guys and make sure to give them one final good send-off in 5th, 3rd. And let's get that W this week. Let's do it, baby. Just get the W. Jameis Winston style. That's all we want. Just give us that W. So, again, thank you to Charlie Hustle for allowing us to show off this awesome merch. Excited to see this. Excited to get this on and in person. Maybe we'll be able to wear it next week. We'll see how fast the shipping is. Maybe we'll get some priority shipping.
I like that.
I don't know. We'll see. But to Charlie Hustle, to 1012 Network, as always, covering all of Bearcats and many, many more through ourselves, through Phil, and through all of the awesome podcasts that are covered underneath our network. Make sure to check them all out. If you got anything for any of these Big 12 teams, somebody's got it covered. So make sure to check all those out. Thank you guys for tuning in this week. Have a great one. Let's get it on senior day. Let's bring home that dub. It's not all a wash yet. Remember, there's still a chance you could win like another 10 games. I don't know. I'm going to stop talking now. Have a good one, folks. Viva!
Bearcats. 10 in a row, baby.
10 in a row.